Hi, everyone. Welcome. We're going to get started. This is an Ask Me Anything pretty special today because there was a little bit of news that was announced earlier. We'll get a chance to dive into it. So this is Ask Me Anything with Back Market founder Thibaud. For those of you that are participating in your first Ask Me Anything, it's really what the event name says. We're going to get to ask him anything and everything. I checked. He's okay to answer all your questions. So I'm counting on you guys to ask some hard ones. I'll open it up about halfway through, so you guys have some time to think, to listen, to brainstorm. And for people who are joining us online also, that will be the case. All right, we're going to get started. I always like to kick it off with a non-business question. I know you guys are all aching to talk about unicorns and valuations and funding. I'll come to that just after. But Thibaud, tell me, what did you want to be when you were little? Did you actually ever imagine you would be doing what you're doing today?
Well, first, thanks for having me here tonight. No, I wanted to be a tennis player.
A tennis player?
Yes.
And what happened?
Obviously, I wasn't talented enough. It's not because my parents or anything. I think it's just I don't have the skills.
Well, I think you ended up pretty good despite the tennis dream. All right, we'll talk about unicorns because I can see people are like, you got to talk about unicorns. You guys announced another huge round of funding today.
Yep.
Which valued you as the most valuable unicorn in France, if I'm not mistaken, 4.4 billion?
5.1.
Sorry for that detail. Tell me, like, what's going on? Why all this funding? How all this funding? Tell us the backstory of like how this all came about.
Well, this one was quite unexpected, to be honest. We did a recent funding back in May, Series D, which was actually prepared and meant to be at that time. And the process went very fast because we had some very desiring investors around the table, like General Atlantic and Generation Investment Management. And so we kind of closed the round within a couple of days. And so the funds who were like eager to get in couldn't. Sprint was one of them. And so, you know, we kept in touch like maybe once or twice. And then suddenly they said, okay, we really want in, and this is the new offer for you. I'm hoping that you will accept it. And I was like, okay, this is an offer that we need to take a look at because it was a good one. And all our existing investors were pleased with the S2 we had with great tractions across the globe. So they were all very excited about doing this. So I think it was, a good deal because when you're raising money is a pain in the ass for every co-founder. I'm sure you have a lot of them here. So, it's a lot of defocus sometimes, to prepare all the data set, the data room, all the discussions with investors. So this one took like zero time. Just had to state all the conditions, and they agreed pretty much on everything. So zero defocus. And I think, like this kind of valuation we could have had like maybe like in the coming months or let's say a year maybe. But so it was like a lot of winning time, getting rid of defocus and having a new joiner, which makes a lot of sense for us because they are an expert into used marketplaces, which is clearly the space, we're in. Those guys, they are very focused in circular economy. They are very techy. Most of the funds are very financial. They are a lot into like LTV on CAC, etc. They like to talk about big numbers and stuff. But those Sprint guys, they are like 80% like ex-C-levels in the tech space, basically. So the due deal was the best. We talked only about product and tech. Only about product and tech, which is, one of the coolest things when you're a founder to talk about, at least for me. So, yeah.
Great. Well, that sounds like a dream. There was like speed at like record speed funding. I've never heard funding be called a pain in the ass. So I have to make fun of you for that. I also find it just incredible that, I mean, it sounded like from the way you told the story, it was kind of investor FOMO that led to the whole thing, and it worked out really great in the end. But I actually want to backtrack. So you guys understood that as of like 3 p.m. or 4 p.m. today, that information was announced and you guys became the most valuable unicorn in France. But I want to backtrack to your early days in 2014 for everybody who's here. I think probably a lot of early stage startup founders here today. Tell me what that was like. Just put me back in that mindset. Are you guys 2, 3 co-founders?
3.
3 co-founders. How did the idea come about? How did you guys decide to work together? Was it just easy from day one?
No. Well, I have to sum it up, but basically, like you have to go back 8 years ago. I discovered 2 things at the same time. For my first job, I was working in a company called NetEven, which is basically an ERP system, an integrator for marketplaces. So I was kind of sitting in the middle of like every industries, like retailers and manufacturers and marketplaces worldwide. So it was a great point to observe like the whole industry, and I happened to discover the marketplace world on one side and the refurbished world on the other side. And when I visited the refurbished plants, I was amazed by the work they were doing, because they were literally like breaking into pieces, like, you know, like tech devices, like smartphones at the time, and replacing used components. And for me, it made the trick, you know, like if you get into those plants, and it was quite an epiphany for me. I was like, okay, you guys are taking it to the next level. Nobody knows about it. I was publishing their inventory on Amazon, Facebook, and eBay, Walmart, and everywhere. But I was selling those products on their used label. So basically for the customer at the time, it was, okay, I want a tech device. So either I choose to buy new and I pay the full price tag, but at the same time I have a warranty, I'm safe. Or I do all the way around, I go buy used. So it's a lot of cost saving. The price tag is very attractive, but I have no safety. If something happens to my device or anything, I'm alone and I have to fix it. Or just cry for my money. So the trust gap between, you know, new and used was too big for many people. You don't want to compromise on safety, especially if you are, you know, considering like to buy a 300 euros or dollar device. It's still a lot of money. So when I saw those plans and I was, you know, like thinking about, okay, what do they bring in terms of value? I was thinking, okay, they are bridging the whole trust gap, basically. But nobody knows about it, so let's build one safe place where we are going just to, you know, aggregate those professionals around the marketplace and just say, okay, it's not used, it's much better, it's refurbished, and you're safe, basically. And for me, circular economy was kind of already fascinating. You know, we always have to do more with less, basically. So that was at the time when the epiphany came, and then I was lucky enough, I guess, to meet my co-founders.
Super. I'm gonna come to the co-founders in a second, but I want to go, for people who are just starting out, I want to go a little bit more in depth into. You essentially saw a great opportunity. You were exposed to, you know, the whole value chain, how it worked. But what made you think, I have to launch a business, and I'm the right person to do this business? I
guess my family background helps. My dad is an entrepreneur, my grandfather is one, my 2 brothers are also entrepreneurs. So we just speak about, you know, like building business all the time. And I kind of grew up with the, you know, the idea that, okay, if you want to be free, if you want to enjoy yourself, then being an entrepreneur is very cool. So when you don't have a background on a family safe place like this that just pushes you like, okay, create a business, if you fail, it's okay. Like really, who cares? Like you live in France, you just leave your job, but you get paid by the state. We're so lucky here in France that you just have 50% of your income in the morning, and you have 2 years to prove yourself as a business. That's a great opportunity, I guess. You know, it's one of the biggest reasons why, you know, the French tech ecosystem is like this right now. It's just we can seed many seeds without taking too much risk again. So I guess it helps if your parents or your friends are saying, "Hey, you're crazy. You have a career, you have a job, you're safe." I might not have done it. I don't know, but it was all the way around. You have nothing to lose. Let's try. We'll back you up.
Very true. And I'm sure that you were exposed to a lot of really interesting problems. What made you go after this one specifically?
I wanted two things. I wanted to create a business because of what I just said, and I wanted something that makes sense. Because previously at Nativen, the original company, the first one I worked in, I was selling a lot of shit through the internet, like really, literally, a lot of product coming from anywhere in the globe, like at very cheap prices, and I was like, okay, we're growing a lot, the business, but it doesn't make sense. Could have been anything. Could have been in the health or social, but I just wanted to have a positive impact. Like, this is the first opportunity I saw.
Wonderful. So now let's come to the co-founder bit. Did you know them before? How did you guys team up? How did you actually get started?
So Quentin was the first one I met. He was a lead backend developer at Nativen. We joined basically at the same time. So it was his first job as well. And he was the best engineer in Nativen. So basically all the others, was a lot about, I don't know, like the mindset wasn't that creative. He was passionate. He was very curious about business. He wanted to understand how the business works. And I wanted to understand, what's your constraint as a tech person. We both wanted it to work. So when a business mindset meets a tech mindset and you do like kind of the halfway, I think this is where you can have the sparkle and the magic. This is not that common, I guess. And so we had that business crush, I guess. And we like to work together for 2.5 years, so that's a lot of time, actually. And after a few beers, a lot of pastis, and, I get to convince him, like, okay, let's do that. The CTO wasn't pulling him a lot forward, and
is that the trick? Because today we hear so many entrepreneurs that they're not sure they should work with their co-founder, and so they start working on a little project together, they give it a test. Did you guys essentially just have a bunch of beers and pastis and kind of hash out the problem, or did you actually test how this would actually work together?
Oh, I guess we were lucky enough to actually work together for 2.5 years. So I knew what to expect from him, and he knew what to expect from me. So it wasn't like, okay, this is your responsibility. I just want that to work. Like that kind of breaks the chemistry quite fast, I guess. When business guys like me just say, okay, I just need this to work like that. That doesn't work. You need to understand the constraint, the basic technical constraint, and everything. So I guess we were lucky enough to work together. If you are lucky enough to work together before creating the company, it's a luxury.
And tell me about the third co-founder.
And the third one, Vinny, we happened to meet him like 6 months after we left, basically, Nativen to create back markets. We had a great functional MVP. So stocks and listings were updated. We had 4 refurbishing manufacturer listing on the platforms. It was online, it was responding, but it was like awful as fuck. Like really, like the colors, the UX, all this was shit. The name, I can't even say what was the name, and I wasn't sleeping very well because I was like, okay, we're going to go out there and fight against like big retailers like Amazon, Fnac, etc. And then we have to make our place, and in 2 seconds the user needs to get what you are offering him, and value your extra value proposition, and we were hosted like in a place like this, like Paris Incubator, by a friend because we had 0 money at the beginning, and he was working at BETC, so Avas Agency Group, before creating his own startup, and say, hey, I know Vianney, he worked a lot on free, he was a big fan of the refurbished industry, you should talk to him, he just left BETC, and he went off to the Philippines with his wife, and he's acting as a freelancer for some tech startups, you should talk. We talked. And we talked through Skype, like maybe for an hour. We described our projects, all our problems. And a week after, he came back to us with a presentation about this is who you should be. And I'm happy to help. I was like, wow, okay, we should work together.
Very cool. That's a very good sign. So now I want to fast forward a little bit because there's those early days where you guys are just deciding what to do, if you should work together. There's today with this massive announcement and the funding. There's a lot of stuff that happened between. So tell us a little bit some of the numbers, the team, how many people, where are you guys located, what kind of sales are you guys doing?
So a few figures. So we were 3, now we're 650. We're based in, we have offices in Europe and in the US. So 50 people based in New York. We have 300 based in Paris, close to 200 based in Bordeaux. We have a small offices in Berlin as well with 20 people. We just opened an office in Barcelona, and we're about to open in Tokyo as well.
Wow.
So this is for employees and locations. And then in terms of, we don't communicate on the turnover. I can only tell you that we have more than 6 million people, 6 million customers right now. It's growing very fast still, so it's good. We avoided 400,000 tons of CO2 emission, which is, the cool stuff. When we start the week at Back Market, we have the figures of the last week, and we have the GMV, the year-on-year growth, obviously, but we also have the exact same figure for CO2 emission, which is the North Star KPI basically of our industry. And yeah, I'm quite proud of that.
Super. And for people who may, obviously I think everyone here knows that you guys sell refurbished electronics, but tell us what you're actually handling. What's the full experience and what does that actually mean you guys are doing operationally?
So basically we're 100% marketplace business. So meaning we are a third party, which I think is very valuable, like Netflix, Airbnb, maybe Uber. So clear identified brand and go-to guy or one-stop shop for anyone in the 16 countries where we are opened to the distribution. So anyone can come to backmarket.com, purchase a refurbished devices that will come from a third party, so a professional refurbisher, which we curated. So all the sellers that are listing their inventory on Back Market have been curated by Back Market. And then we have built an algorithm in order to always push forward the best quality. So I'm going into details here, but marketplaces are pretty common. If it's not, I'm happy to answer in further details. But I think the whole point to create trust on industry is very important. If you are just a marketplace, Amazon will do your job and you're not worth anything else, I guess. And so for us, the biggest pain point of our industry is trust and quality. People have trust issue when it comes to buy not new devices. It's normal, it's a new way of consuming. So we built an algorithm to dynamically curate always and push forward only one offer per product to the end user. Even if we have 40 sellers with stock, we push the one having the lowest effective rate, which means it could also be more expensive than the competition. So we kind of, change the way those refurbishers and those professionals were used to do business, because on other platforms it's all about price. So you go on any marketplaces and you have the cheapest price. If you get the cut at the beginning and you are live on the platform, it's always the cheapest price, which destroys a lot the value for the seller and the margins. And we are doing exactly the opposite. Not the opposite, but the first KPI is quality and defective rate. So how many products break and have a defective out of 100. If you get the lowest one, then you get the visibility and you can maybe sell at 40 euros more than the competition. And you are the first one fronted. That gives margin to the ecosystem, margin that can be invested in quality. And if you don't, then you basically get drawn within the system and you can't sell anymore on Back Market. So I think this is, the key and the reason why we're growing and taking market shares and winning clients every day is because we switch the dynamic of the supply chain, and it's a win-win for both the customer and the seller. More margin, more sell-out, more flow rate for the seller, more quality, a lower defective rate for the customer, and more trust in the end.
Very interesting. I'm glad you kind of deep dive into that because I think it's a topic that comes up a lot when we talk about marketplaces. How do you create that trust? Is this something that you guys have seen a lot in marketplaces?
I don't know. You've kind of you have two approaches, I guess, for marketplaces. You have to choose your side. You have the Airbnb one, like a lot of information, full transparent, everybody listed on the platform, with a lot of reviews, vertically dedicated to what you're looking for. I think they are a great example. Or you have the Uber one. You connect to Uber, you don't know who you are going to select as a driver, and this is it. So for me, either you integrate all the complexity like Uber, and you make a lot of curation around your offer, or either you choose to offer everything, every listing from your seller, and you kind of give the user experience to easy filters and everything to have a better user flow, I guess, for your customers.
Super. And you mentioned some of the numbers earlier, but I feel like a question that all the marketplaces always ask is the chicken and the egg problem. How did you guys address this in the early days, getting the offer and the demand on the marketplace?
Chicken and the egg problem. Well, we were working at an integrator called Netiven when we resigned, and we presented our project with Q. And we dealt to do the integration ourselves to Netiven, so we could benefit from the offer of the 4 factories of refurbishing factories that we were working with at Netiven. So day one, we had the inventories of 4 factories listed and updated daily on the platform without asking them to do anything else, except that they needed to warranty 6 months minimum versus 3 months elsewhere. That was the only thing that I was asking them. And then we get to ask kind of more every day because we are raising the quality bar, but you can't do that day one, so you have to progressively do that. But this is how we had basically the offer day one. Then we started to grow, acquire more customers, more listings, and yeah.
Super. I'm going to open it up in a minute, so hopefully you guys have been thinking about your questions, and I'm just going to repeat that you guys can ask anything, any topic. So before I do that, I'll ask one more question myself. I'm interested in these 8 years. I mean, you guys have done so much. You've built something so incredible. What's been hard? What's been like really hard for you?
HR, I guess.
Tell me about it. What's hard in HR?
I mean, like, if you succeed, it's because you have a great team. And if you fail, like, it could be also a large reason why you did fail. So, yeah, it's a lot of work, to scale a company. There is a lot of capital out there. So we're fighting every day to get the best talent on board. So hiring is challenging. And then you have to always, the culture. When you get to hire people, you have great talents, you are very happy, but then you need to retain, and then you need to make them work together pretty efficiently. The more you scale, the more you have to reorganize and adapt the way you work, your processes to your size. So for me, there are a few thresholds. So 30 people, first threshold. So okay, the culture is not informal anymore. We need to write down some stuff. So it's fine to behave that way. It's not fine to behave like that. Then 100 people, then 250. And really, you can't work the same way. For me, at those stages, we needed to update the culture. Very important, like, okay, values are growing with the company. I don't believe you can keep the way it was, or at least for me, it's a mistake. You have to upgrade your culture with the values of the people that you have internally, and then you have to review your processes.
I think that's a really great point, and we've had founders of a lot of smaller teams in this seat, so we haven't heard all those thresholds later in the game. But it is really interesting because I think that also helps a lot of the companies here know that there are thresholds and changes that you need to implement. I want to come back to the 30-person one because I find that really interesting and probably applicable to a lot of companies here. Just tell us, what did you really experience as a shift at around that point?
Symptoms would be like misalignment. Like when you start, you're around the same table, basically in a small space. So everything you say, you kind of have for acknowledge that everybody knows or acknowledge. Then 30, you have maybe like different rooms, or at least it's bigger. So the communication is not that seamless anymore, and the miss of information and the lack of information create misalignment. And the more people you have, the more risk of misalignment that you have, and then you will find yourself in places where, okay, we don't get each other that much anymore, it's not that easy anymore. You need more and more to just step in and say, okay, let's just discuss together on a line, and you do it once, twice, 10 times, and you say, okay, it's not possible. We need to find a process to make sure, like, okay, it's going more smoothly. So communication is definitely, like, you will see miscommunication coming back into your conversation with your co-founders. And this is, yeah, the 4 symptoms for me I recall.
Super, I think that's super helpful and refreshing to have so much honesty about it.